Young Black and Opinionated. I'm your host, Christina Royster. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. You can leave me a comment, rate, review, all that stuff if you like what you hear today. And I am joined by a special guest, Brotha Ash.
Hey.
Rapper, musician, producer, and you are the founder of Maplewick Records. And I really want to make today's episode all about how hip hop is a collaborative effort. And I think that's exactly what you're doing with the Wick. So, are you ready to get into our episode?
Yes, I am.
Alrighty. So, as we know, this episode is coming out on August 11th, which is the birthday of hip hop. So this is hip hop's 50th anniversary. It all started back in 1973. And as I was thinking about what do I want to say for this special occasion, there's a lot of great content out there right now about hip hop 50 and what's going on. I mean, women are taking over the industry. We had a whole episode a few weeks ago about that. We have some conscious rappers. We have some TikTok rappers. We had a first episode about that with Manny Simmons. And so for this episode, I wanted to highlight how hip hop really started because it took a village. It was somebody throwing a hip hop, summertime jam. Mm-hmm. And that's really how the genre kind of took off. It was all about the community. It was all about, block parties and people gathering around the DJ at the basketball courts. Like, if you really go back to the old school, start of hip hop in the Bronx. And so I wanted to talk about, just piece by piece, the different elements that kind of make a good hip hop jam. Yeah. Not only that, but a good team, because we have seen really successful teams and labels and people working together as a collaborative, take off. I'm wearing right now Death Row Records. We know Suge Knight, he had his reputation, but since then, Snoop Dogg has ownership of the label now, and how it's all about kind of reaching out and putting the next artist on so that we can have a new sound and hip-hop can continue to evolve. And so I guess I could just start with, what you're doing with the Wick and how you envision partnership. How did each piece kind of fall together? And you can talk about some of your inspirations. I know a few episodes ago I talked to you about your upcoming album. Well, it's now out. Mm-hmm. The album is now out, and how at that time you were inspired by the Wu-Tang Clan. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how groups and collaboratives have influenced what you're doing.
Yeah, hey, Miss Chris Dee.
Okay, everybody, let's cut to the chase. Everybody knows Brotha Ash is also my partner in life.
I was just saying hello.
You looked at me like, hey, bae. Okay.
I just wanted to say hello. But hey, bae. How you doing? All right, now we got that out the way. I love different hip hop groups. I don't think originally I knew what I wanted to do as far as, being an independent artist and having a label. I didn't know if that meant 100% executive. I always knew I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't sure when, I really would get some momentum with the team. A lot of that took me, I grew up playing sports, so I have the idea of, teamwork all down packed. Big family, a bunch of siblings, not a bunch of siblings, but, siblings, cousins. So you learn how to work people. Work with people, I should say.
No, I was gonna say, don't work people. Don't be a shook.
I learned how to work with people. And with the Wick, having groups like the Wu-Tang Clan, No Limit, even Young Money. I was a huge Young Money fan. Some hip hop groups are, independent, not completely independent. They might be under a bigger, music company. But at the end of the day, all the groups that I looked at, no matter how independent they were, had different characters. They had a boss. They had,
I like that you said characters, because it's always if there's a group, it's always that's the pretty boy, that's the front man, that's the crazy guy that trashes the hotel rooms.
The rock star, that's the one that's quiet. That's the one that might actually kill somebody. You know what I'm saying? But with the Wick, man, it was really just, just being spontaneous with this group of artists that are part of the team now, and just networking. Because originally, the Wick was started in Willingboro. I'm from Willingboro, so originally, I was hitting up all people from Willingboro trying to be a part of the Wick. And that was dope. That was dope to be able to work with them and to be able to have people from my hometown Even my god sister, like, what I'm saying, being a part of the team. And my
Shout out to
sister
T. Yeah.
isn't like officially like a member or artist, but
She's an
like she's
advisor.
like a silent advisor
Yeah.
for me. Even my whole family's involved with it. So like it's kind of like the next step was expanding, going to Trenton and then meeting the creatives out there. And then just networking through my network already, like being introduced to Mike through Seep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like just putting yourself out there really and just being vulnerable enough. And if you're transparent enough, the right people will flock to you. So
I
yeah.
like what you said about kind of how, you started out thinking this would be a solo venture, starting your music career. And I think that's most of the people we hear about. RZA, we saw how everything unfolded on the Wu-Tang Clan series on Hulu, and how the first season he did have that solo career, but he quickly learned how the industry worked, and he learned that he couldn't manage it on his own. Like you said, even he brought in his brother for management purposes. The local drug dealer became his merch guy. And so let's even talk about that a little bit. Like, everybody has a role to play. And I know it was misspoken when you said you want to work everybody, but no, let's leverage everybody's talents. Like, we are putting our skills to work. Each of us has a different something to bring to the table. And so can you kind of break down, how you've even collaborated with people on videography and things that, just certain skill sets that you've realized, hey, I don't have this videography skill set. I need to utilize a black creator at that.
Again, it's to me it just boils down to just like being authentic and talking to people, and the right people, because you can have somebody that's willing to work with you, who's accessible, who's affordable, but they don't handle business the right way. You know what I'm saying? So when you go out there and you're trying to book locations or venues, or you're trying to rent equipment, whatever the case may be, and you operating with that person, and they end up going left doing something shady. Now you in a whole nother situation. Your business is now staying with a bad rep. So it's kind of like um, yeah, I'm just lucky enough. I've ran into some duds definitely, but like I just try to fill people out. Like I try to find people where the quality and the passion of it is just as much of a big deal to them as it is to me.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if you have 1,000 or 100,000 followers on Instagram. If you work a 9 to 5 and you spend your 9 to 5 money buying new cameras or buying new podcast microphones or buying new beat machines, or we can talk about more than something as simple as dropping records. You know what I'm saying? I want to work with artists that's like really independent minded. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really have to push you in, because to me, I love this so much. I shouldn't have. Nobody has to push me to be great or to try to be great. So I want to work with people that had that same mindset, and it's just a process, really, just filling people out. Yeah.
That really kind of reminds me, yet again, bringing up the Wu-Tang Clan, but as I said, we date, so we was watching that show together.
Yeah, it was a
And
great show.
remember
Yeah.
the part where, ODB kind of let the fame and the money and the drugs and the drinking kind of just make him lazy, didn't want to get in the studio. They had to pull him into the studio.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just like, bruh, how could you, somebody who used to love rapping, how do we have to drag it to the studio now? And so I think when you do put the business into it, you kind of lose that passion a little bit. And it does kind of break people up, because putting artists together isn't always easy, right? You have different styles, different mindsets. And I was recently watching that hip hop origin show on A&E. It came out in 2022, but I think they are repurposing it for HBO Max or something. So it's coming out on HBO Max in 2023. Definitely check that out if you guys have it. It's really a great, ground floor basics of hip hop, learning about different artists. And one of the artists on there was Ice-T, and Ice-T was talking about how he was literally orphaned, had to move in with his auntie in California, definitely a culture shock, change of pace and everything. And he said he got kicked out at like 17, living on his own. And how do you make money? You throw parties, going back to the 70s, 80s. And, you know, even today, I wish we still had rent parties. Well, you know a group that does rent parties, right?
Yeah.
The Block in Trenton.
Yep.
And so going
Shoot,
back.
I'll do rent parties.
Right. I was going to say, like, when you're trying to make it in this industry and promote yourself, the best way to do that is to have these, you know, events and stuff. But it does take a village. You can't do these things on your own. From the DJ to the promoter to the bartender, everybody involved.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit. Let's just break it down a little bit. Starting from a song, because on that Hip Hop Origins, they had an episode with Grandmaster Flash, and he's like the godfather of modern day DJing. And basically, it was Grandmaster Flash in the five, but they got the spotlight, and they said, we don't need Grandmaster Flash no more. And he was kind of just puzzled, like, how did it go from the DJ being the star of the party to the MC being the star of the party?
It's the industry.
Yeah, and so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, like, everybody's role. What's the MC's role? What's the producer's role? What's the DJ's role at the party, you know? Like, because, yeah, you can make a song in your room, but how are you going to get it out there? How are you going to grow your audience?
Yeah.
And how are you going to keep your audience? You know, we see artists today, everybody's going back on tour now because they realize, like, you got to give people an experience in person. And so just let's break it down. Let's start with the producer, because I feel like you really have grown into your production era. You started out, you know, using other people's beats. Now you know how to make your own beats. And so do you think the producer is overrated or underrated?
I think the producer role will always be underrated, just because a lot of producers themselves are the best of them, at least, are artists, like true artists. And if you know any like artists, like whether they are painters, sculptors, carpenters, whatever, they're people who need, you know, privacy and don't really need a lot of attention to work. And then you have other like super producers like, you know, Kanye, you know, even Timbaland, who may not be outside all the time, but people, their names are like in everybody's house. So